Hello, everyone. I'm Catherine Restrepo, and I am the Executive Director of the Master in Law program. And along with my colleagues, Natalie Green and Kate Johnstone, and a tremendous group of faculty who've agreed to join us today, and students and alumni of the program, just a few, to whom we're incredibly grateful. We welcome all of you to today's information session, which we've created for all of you who are working and studying in healthcare and medicine and related fields, so that we can give you a perspective and perhaps a taste of the program. Really, ultimately, our goal is to interest you in joining us for one of the many tremendous options that are available to you at the University of Pennsylvania Carey Law School in this program. Before I begin, I wanted to welcome, note that everybody in the audience, note everybody in the audience, we have faculty, staff, and students from the university, as well as professionals working in medicine and healthcare from outside of the university, from outside of the law school. And we welcome all of you to consider our programming. Today's program, what I'll do is very briefly introduce the opportunity, why you might consider the opportunity, what the different options are available, depending on whether you're a member of the Penn community or whether you'd be joining us from an external audience. Then we'll hand it off to, again, our faculty, to whom we're very grateful. We've teed up just a few classes that might be of particular relevance to all of you. As I said, most of you working and studying currently in healthcare and medicine. Then we'll hand it off to our student panelists who, again, I think their perspective is so valuable. They sat in your shoes perhaps many years ago, and they represent the diversity that exists in the program. And really, they can share their perspective and their experiences, both as students in the program, as members of our law school community, and maybe they'll highlight some of the classes that they enjoyed, particularly maybe even some classes that aren't necessarily discussed today. We'll talk about some additional classes in addition to those, again, that we're very fortunate to have our faculty discuss today. But first, before I summarize the options that are available, I think it's first important just to note, why might you consider this? Why have our students, and again, I think the most valuable perspective is to hear from the students themselves, but we've created this program. We thought that was important for you to understand why we've created this program, and then maybe you'll see yourself, in this program and understand it's really a tremendous opportunity. It's unique really among law schools. A founding principle of the program, as you can see under the dean's picture, is basically that law belongs to all of us. It is not within the sole purview of those who plan to practice law, but really it belongs to all of us. And there's tremendous advantage for anybody working across industries, across roles, emerging and mid-level professionals, as well as accomplished professionals, those at the pinnacle of their careers. There are tremendous advantages for those who educate themselves in the law and who understand the law and legal underpinnings of their field and of their specific roles. So that's why we've created this program, and that's why we continue to update and edit the program, continue to create offerings that are very specific to certain roles, and that's why we continue to tweak the program and offer courses at times that are convenient. We don't want our students leaving their professional roles to join us in the law school. We want them bringing those really informed perspectives into our classrooms and into our community. And I think you'll hear from our faculty today how much they appreciate that and how much they really count on you, to add to their class with your valuable perspective. So what you might expect to get from the program, and I'm sure you'll hear this from our students as well, is you'll learn the legal framework of medical and legal issues. If you're working in research with contracts, with NIH funding, you'll really learn, you'll inform yourself on the sources of those and why you're doing what you do, really, and that's incredibly valuable. We'll be sending these slides along, by the way, I won't go into the specific detail of each of these, but please know anything you see in the slide, don't feel like you have to not pay attention and take notes, because we'll send this around to everybody who's RSVP'd for today's event, and we'll also be posting this on our web pages for future reference as well. So again, many of these items and so much more, we think are items of value that most likely you work with. You'll be able to inform yourself on these, and we have courses that will address each of these specific topics, as you may hear about today. Again, very briefly, very quick summary, since we have members in the audience who are both from the Penn community and those from an external audience. Those from the Penn community have the opportunity to take a class at any term, fall, spring, and summer. Our spring term is starting on June 20th this year, which is a little late. So those from the Penn community can consider taking one of our spring classes. We'll go over quite a few of them today. And those from an external, those from the Penn community can take a class at any term. You can apply to enroll in the certificate in law with 4 classes, and then you can apply and if accepted and you choose to go forward into the master's program, you can certainly pursue the master in law degree. For members from an external audience, you can visit classes in the summer. Currently, we offer 3. We think this summer we'll have 4 or 5, adding some online options to the summer's course of options. And otherwise, during the fall and spring term, those who would be joining us from an external audience, you would apply to the Master in Law degree and enroll in the degree before you could take our classes. So, again, we'll touch on many of these classes on the list here today. But then I think at this point might be a really good time. I don't want to take up too much time with the administrative. I'll just mention one minor housekeeping point is that we'll please enter your questions on the Q&A function. We'll gather those, and then after our student panel, we'll have time to address those. And if we don't, we'll certainly follow up by email after today's event. So let us begin with Professor Dominick Guerrini. We're very happy to have Professor Guerrini with us today. He co-teaches this class with Nadeem Bazaar, who was unable to join us today. And I guess I should back up a moment. I think rather than stopping after each class and faculty member, I'll go ahead right now and share with you the backgrounds of all of our faculty, and then we'll just hand off to the next faculty member in the next slide, the next class that's teed up. But Professor Dominick Guerrini is a graduate of Rutgers and Penn Law. And since graduating from Penn Law, he has worked as a successful litigator, practicing in medical malpractice, which of course he teaches here, and various tort and personal injury cases for the firm of Kline and Specter. You'll then hear from Professor Angus Corbett. Professor Corbett's been teaching in both our Master in Law program and our JD program. He teaches health law and policy in the ML program and comparative health law systems in the JD program. He joins us from down under, has degrees from McCary University and his LLM from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And while we know sabbatical may take him to far off lands in the future, we'll hope to keep him engaged, perhaps remotely and in various other ways. Professor Paul Kaufman is an assistant United States attorney. He works every day on issues of fraud and abuse in healthcare, which is what he teaches for us here in the JD program. He's a graduate of the University of Chicago and Yale Law School. Professor Emily Largent and also Professor Holly Fernandez-Lynch teaches on alternate years. I should mention Professor Lynch was not able to join us today, but she'll be on the list in future terms. Professor Largent is an assistant professor of medical ethics and health policy and has a secondary appointment I was so delighted to see at the law school. Professor Largent has both a JD and a PhD from Harvard and is a graduate of Penn's nursing school. And I know we have some nursing students from Penn on the call. So we're delighted to have that connection. And Professor Largent also has a degree from the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. And on that note, Dom, Professor Guerrini, I'll hand off to you to share what you'd like about the class Medical Liability and Negligence. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dom Guerrini. I have been teaching the course on medical liability and negligence for the past 2 years, along with my partner, Nadeem Bazaar. Just some quick background on the two of us. We are both partners at the law firm of Kline and Specter in Philadelphia. Speaking for myself, the vast majority of my practice is litigating on a daily basis medical malpractice claims. Both of us come from the plaintiff's perspective, in that we bring these claims on behalf of plaintiffs and we are suing healthcare providers. And so we have that unique perspective that you might not have in your daily life, and it may be helpful to you to learn how a plaintiff's lawyer might think if, heaven forbid, you are ever called as a defendant in a medical malpractice case. So we like to think of our case as being largely practical and useful. And the feedback that we have received after we have taught it, especially from the healthcare providers who have taken the course, is that I can't believe that all of us doctors, all of us nurses are not required to learn this type of thing because it is so important in our practice, and it really arms us and educates us in the event that we do become involved in the process. Just a brief overview of the course. Some people are a little bit intimidated because they don't have a legal background. We teach you the nuts and bolts up front. So at the very beginning, we teach you the nuts and bolts of tort law. What is negligence? What is causation? What is duty? How do you determine damages? So we cover those things on a general basis at the beginning so that everyone is on the same footing as far as terminology and the basic process. Once we finish that brief background, probably lasts about 2 or 3 weeks, we then go into the nuts and bolts of medical malpractice claims. And we talk about the types of medical malpractice claims that can be brought. We talk about things like defenses that can be raised. And because we are litigators and this is what we do for a living, we're bringing to you real life, real world examples. You will see things that were filed in court. You will see things that we have put together. Even current cases in our practice we'll often talk to you about, and because they highlight some of the issues in the class. So once we start talking about the specific medical malpractice pieces and cases, we then go through the discovery process. We go through deposition. What is a deposition? How does it work? And we provide examples of that. We then go through to the next phase of litigation in these cases, and we talk about expert reports, how those are put together. And again, we're showing you real world, real life examples. We do this as well with trial. We take it right up through trial and we show you examples of cases that we have tried so that you get a feel for what trial involves, from jury selection to closing speeches to a verdict. And in between, we focus on some more analytical aspects of medical malpractice litigation. We talk about things like trends. We talk about things like alternative dispute resolution. What is mediation? What is arbitration? Why might those things be useful alternatives to the traditional method of going to court and getting in front of a jury? So it's really a very practical course that gives you the nuts and bolts of what medical malpractice is, how these cases are litigated, and what the defenses are, so that, again, if you ever have to get involved, either as a defendant or an expert, you will be educated on the process, and you will certainly feel more comfortable.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And I should also say to our audience, if you feel that you have a question about a specific class, feel free to put that into the Q&A, and then we can direct those to our faculty after our student panel. So I think at this point, I'll hand over to Emily.
Sounds great. Thanks, Kathy. So my name is Emily Largent, and as Kathy said, I'm an assistant professor of medical ethics and health policy at the School of Medicine and a secondary appointment at Penn Law since this summer, which was really exciting for me. In terms of some other quick background, I have a PhD in health policy with a focus in ethics and my nursing degree from Penn, and I spent a fair amount of time working as an ICU nurse before I went back to Harvard. So I have to say that all of these perspectives really inform how I teach, and I plan to make the class very interdisciplinary so that you will have readings from a variety of things to really understand, hopefully, a 360 view on health law and policy. This spring is going to be my third time teaching the health law and policy class. And I have to say there are two really key things that I love teaching about this class. So the first one is that every time I start the semester, I have to know that this is a really exciting time to be learning about health law and policy, because every day we're hearing about relevant issues in the news. We're talking with our friends and our family and hearing about things, and even scrolling through social media, although that might be the particular med Twitter sphere that I occupy. But it won't be surprising to anybody who's in this Zoom room right now that given everything that's happening in the world around us at this moment, this is a really exciting time to be learning about health law and policy. So just to highlight a few of the issues that come to me, the Supreme Court is considering a challenge to the ACA, yet another one, and we have a new justice in the mix. We have a president-elect who's looking to turn Obamacare into Biden care. We have a pandemic that's challenging us to think about public health law, for example, through stay-at-home orders. We need to think about food and drug law as we watch for approval of treatments and also vaccines. That's, of course, in the news and very promising. And we have to think about various issues when we consider the permissibility of rationing schemes. So if anybody's at the bedside right now thinking about rationing scarce medications or ventilators, this can implicate broader legal issues. And finally, I'd really be remiss not to mention, as we think about the pandemic, that that's forced us to consider as part of a larger national reckoning issues like health disparities, structural racism, and even when we think about something like human subjects research regulations, we really have to understand that in a history of abuses and anti-Black violence. So there's a lot to talk about, and it's always exciting to connect with what we're talking about with what's happening outside in the world and how that's affecting our personal and our professional lives. And I think that's a nice segue to think about the second thing that I love teaching about this class, which is really the students. So in a typical year, students have an incredible diversity of backgrounds. I know we have physicians and nurses, researchers, IRB members, journalists, graduate students, even the occasional undergraduate who adds a lot to the discussion. And as a result, there are just really rich discussions, and people contribute a lot of insights into how health law and policy really do shape the context in which we live and practice. So having said all of that as background, I have a little bit more to say about the class. So my goal for this is really to be a high-level overview of health law and policy in the US. And I really don't want to assume that you come in with any background. So my goal is to help you understand the building blocks of health law and policy and to gain confidence applying key concepts and thinking about them, for example, when reading legal opinions or when applying facts and thinking about how the law applies in those cases. So we do this by running through a variety of topics like healthcare financing, the physician-patient relationship, medical product regulation, and public health law. It really is a survey course, so it's sort of one day dedicated to each of these topics with the hope that it will both give you a foundational understanding of law and policy that will be useful in what you're already doing, but also to pique your interest so that you can go on to take more narrowly focused courses like the ones that my colleagues are discussing here today. And just as a final note, I recognize that all of us are living through this pandemic right now, and it's an incredibly stressful and difficult time. And I would anticipate that for some of you, it's a little bit daunting to think about taking a class next semester and really engaging in these activities. But I wanted to assure you that I am actively revising my syllabus, both to make sure that you get key and timely content, and also to think about how we can make the class as user-friendly as possible. So that'll be a dialogue we continue throughout the semester to make sure that it's meeting your academic needs, but also fitting in with your professional and personal lives, recognizing the multitude of challenges we're all facing. And I should just be candid about my own challenge, which is that I'm moonlighting as a third grade teacher right now. So I will have to step off this call. My next job is to play lunch lady. And so I won't be around to answer questions, but I am available by email. So Kathy, please connect anybody with me who has questions. And I hope to see a lot of you this spring.
I'm happy to. I'm happy to make that connection. And thank you so much, Emily. That was a wonderful overview, and good luck with your with your teaching. I know we're all playing so many roles in this in these days, but I'm sure you will excel at that role just as you excel at this role. And thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today. Thanks a lot. Wonderful. So I think with that, we'll move to Professor Angus Corbett, who also teaches the class that was just described by Professor Largent. And he also teaches comparative health systems. So you can feel free, Angus, Professor Corbett, to speak about both or to focus on one. The floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you. My name is Angus Corbett, and as Kathy's kindly noted, I'm a somewhat recent immigrant, and my training and background was in Australia. My background and interest in this are in health systems and regulation. So in a way that's parallel with that Emily's described, health law and policy, my interest in health law and policy is to reveal to those who are in the health field what the health system looks like when through a legal lens. So how rules operate, how they structure activities, and how often clunky and difficult and sometimes ineffective, but nonetheless present. So I'm interested in both the minutiae of health practice, that is the actual delivery of care, also in the broader structures that create the possibility for the health system and for the delivery of care. So I mentioned probably this, I'm teaching currently this course, and I wanted to mention one class that is for me an instance of what is possible in this course. In this semester, partly because of the Zoom format, I was lucky enough to have a teaching assistant who is I use that in inverted commas because he is actually a senior compliance officer in a large, for a large health system. And in addition to his continuing role, Professor Kaufman was generous enough to come to talk to my class about fraud and abuse in health. And that class turned out to be one of the better classes that I've been involved in my career, because in the one moment, members of the class got to see an interaction between a compliance officer and a prosecutor, who are in some ways two sides of the same coin. And they got to see and understand what it looks like from a prosecutor's perspective, as well as what it looks like from a compliance officer's perspective. And I think that was both amazing and invaluable. And I would add that part of my precise and specific goal for people who attend this course is to better understand and interpret what they hear lawyers say. So if they are lectured to by a lawyer who's coming to talk about abuse or whatever in an organizational context, to try and understand and interpret what they're saying, to try and interpret and understand what compliance officers are actually saying to them when they issue the standard stock form of words about the significance of compliance. In addition to Emily's very good account of the law, I would emphasize that one particular group that I'm interested in is the med students and the dental students. I'm really interested in that group of potential students, both because I think this is a wonderful opportunity to see the health system that they're being inducted into from a legal perspective and see what it looks like. But it is a really good moment for them to know the difference between the legal analysis of the health system and the actual practice of healthcare that they're learning to engage in. I've encouraged any med student that has spoken to me. I offer a lot of flexibility for med students who have competing obligations, both as to timing of assignments, and I make myself available to med students to talk with them about issues as they arise. I've had some pretty astounding experiences with med and dental students, and so I really encourage any of those students to consider this course. The second course I teach is Comparative Health Systems, and broadly, oddly, it has the same role. It's concerned with understanding the complexity of the US health system, albeit from a different perspective, that is for through an analysis of other health systems, and by way of analysis of those health systems, having students address familiar questions about health in the United States in a more in a different and more perceptive way, which is a traditional role of comparative law and comparative analysis, but it's certainly the one adopted in this course. The comparative health systems and law course has one other role, which is to analyze the relationship not between particular laws and the health system, so much as with the legal system and health systems. And that reveals some important characteristics of US law, using the terms of Kagan, of an adversarial legal system in the United States as compared with bureaucratic law systems in Europe. Again, I urge anyone who has an interest in getting an overview and understanding of health system to consider this course. It is a really good opportunity to have the opportunity to get into an analysis of other health systems in a middle level of detail and analysis. We go into some detail. Obviously, each of those health systems is very complicated, but we go into those systems with enough detailed knowledge to get something of a feel for those systems, and to use that knowledge to think more critically and more constructively about the US health system. So again, I encourage anyone with an broad interest in understanding the issues before the United States, and particularly those described by Professor Argent, to consider this course as well. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Angus. Very, very helpful, very informative, and we really appreciate that. I think at this point we'll move on to Professor Paul Kaufman.
So welcome everyone. Thank you guys for stepping in. I think that the first question that anybody needs to answer, and when thinking about whether they want to take my class, is why you would want to listen to a prosecutor. That's fundamentally the value that I bring. So what is that about? And I think that the way to think about that is pretty simple. It's the same way that Dom talked about a few minutes ago. You know, some of you have a desire to work in fields where prosecution is an important factor. Those are compliance officers, those of you who want to move into medical policy. All of those things are shaped, for better or for worse, by the prosecutorial authority of the United States of America. And some of you are dedicating yourselves to careers that are going to take you in directions where you're going to touch on those fields. And if you want to be a nail, it's probably a pretty good idea to spend a few minutes with a hammer at some point. The way that the perspectives inform how you think and how we think are important, and understanding how we think about you when we think about you is important if you are going to be in one of those kinds of fields. So what I teach is on the screen. You can read it just as easily as I can. But like Dom's class, I'm not interested in the theory of hammers. I'm not interested too much in the history of hammers. I'm interested in how you swing a hammer. And that means that I will introduce you from a ground up, and understand, for those of you who are non-traditional law students, who are not JD students, almost none of the JDs have any of this information. This is not the way that law school is primarily taught. I don't teach the class primarily using decisional case law from Supreme Court, where you're at a disadvantage. I do what I can to level it for everybody. And very few law students take classes in federal crimes, which is where we start. And we walk through, what are the crimes that are at issue here? What are the civil violations that are at issue here? What are the administrative violations that are at issue here? What are their elements? What do you have to prove? What do you have to have proved against you? And then we talk about something that very few people talk about in law school, which is how that actually happens, how facts are obtained. What are the kinds of things that you could get from a U.S. attorney's office, something with my name at the bottom of it, or the DOJ eagle at the top of it. And what do those things mean to you? What do they tell you about? And then once we have that as a foundation, how we investigate and what it is that we're investigating, we then go through what are the common problems that we see? What are issues that we've seen lots of for pharmaceutical manufacturers or device manufacturers, doctors and hospitals? And my favorite part, and I speak with this with great ardor because it just happened again this week, is all of the MLs who take my class are taking it for a 3rd credit. It's normally a 2-credit class. And the 3rd credit comes by way of you doing a presentation in class to other students for about 15 or 20 minutes in which you talk about something of interest to you in healthcare fraud. And this is, I think, a wonderful opportunity for you to capitalize on what you're doing every day. You're a dentist. Talk about dentistry. You are looking to move up within critical care nursing from a nurse position to an administrative position. Explore the issues of fraud in critical care nursing. And you get a credit for studying something that your department's going to want to hear about from you. And it's a way to show real value, to return real value to those people. And I hope that a goal of my class is the same goal that was taught to me at the University of Chicago a million years ago when I took a class on the origins of cancer. And the professor said, look, I know that you're not going to be, a cancer scientist. You're in this for non-majors, right? I know that you're not going to be prosecutors for the most part, the MLs. That's not the career path you're on. But she said, I want you to be able to read the Tuesday New York Times and feel comfortable. I want you to be able to read press releases and headlines and corporate integrity agreements and know what they mean, know how we got there. And the only thing I can say in terms of whether you should agree to take my class, whether that's something that you want to do, other than we're going to have a hell of a lot of fun if I have anything to say about it, is ask the people here. Dr. Iyer took my class. Ms. Robertson took my class. Ms. Leone, who couldn't make it, took my class. Just ask them. And if they tell you like, this was a nightmare for me, don't take my class, because then I failed. And if they tell you you should take the class, because what the hell? They're in the same seats that you are. Thanks.
And they all will say, take the class. And as I mentioned before we went live to Professor Kaufman, Barb Leone, who in fact will move on to our next slide. Oh no, I'm sorry. Well, you'll see Barb Leone on the slide of students. We'll be introducing the students in just a moment. But she actually she's created an education plan for nurses. Those of you working at HUP may see her education programming that she offers each month, I believe it is, and she bases it on so much of what she learned from Professor Kaufman's class and in the program itself. But thank you so much, Professor Kaufman. And to all of our faculty, really, for those wonderful overviews and introductions. And really, we could have an hour on each class, really, just to tell you, to give, and we still wouldn't even be addressing, so much of what you'll learn in those classes. And just a sampling, what we did here on this slide is we wanted to throw additional classes up that would be specifically relevant to those of you on the call based on the backgrounds of those of you in the audience today. But essentially what's important to know, and you'll be able to find this if you Google Penn Law Course Finder. It's open to the public. It's a platform on our website, and it shows all of the courses that are either currently listed or that have been listed in the last say, I think it's 6 semesters, so the last several years. And you can look according to topic, if it's health, if it's criminal, whatever topic your area of interest is, you can take a look and you'll find many of these courses. So again, this is just a sampling, but again, for those of you working in medicine, healthcare, and related fields, you'll find many of these courses will help inform your work on a daily basis, and they may even inform, slight pivot. We find many of our students are teaching and writing, and they find that their participation in the program really helped enrich their speaking, writing. It helped them really feel the confidence that they knew what they were speaking about, because they knew how to find the source of of what they're doing. So again, you'll get this slide, so we don't have to go through each of these classes, but this just gives you a sampling of some of the many health related classes. I think at this point we see our beautiful faces, our beautiful students. I just can't even say enough wonderful things. Much like our faculty, I could go on and on and on. In the introductions, I'll give a brief summary introduction about everybody that's able to speak with us today. As I mentioned, Barb Leone, while she's on the screen and very active and very engaged in our program, she was unable to join us today at the last minute, but we're so delighted to have the rest of our students joining us today. And I'll do my best, and I know I'm leaving out really wonderful and very important aspects of who you are as people and who you are as professionals, but just to give everybody a sense of the areas you're doing. And also keep in mind, folks, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We have, again, professional students from so many roles throughout healthcare and adjacent industries. But again, this is a sample, and our gratitude is just tremendous for all of you taking your time today to share with us your perspective. So first, I guess maybe I'll introduce everybody as a group, and then maybe what we'll do is we can just, because it's the picture in front of us, maybe we'll start with Naki and then go to Lori, and then Dr. Iyer and so on. But very briefly, Dr. Ramesh Iyer is a pediatric cardiologist and a professor of clinical pediatrics at the Perelman School of Medicine. He holds an MBBS from, I know and excuse my names if I don't get them right, Maulana Azad Medical College at the University of Delhi, as well as an MD from Safdarjung Hospital at the University of Delhi. We're so thankful to have Dr. Iyer with us today. We also have Naki Hayter. Also, I should mention that Dr. Iyer graduated from the program in 2020. We also have with us Naki Hayter, who graduated from the program in 2018, and he serves as the Principal Research Associate Lead Discovery at Editas Medicine, which works with CRISPR gene editing technology to develop genomic medicines for people living with serious disease. Previously having worked at Penn at the School of Medicine as a research specialist, and he also served at the Penn Center for Innovation and has had various technology transfer positions throughout his career. He holds a master's in neuroscience from the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, and a master's and the ML focusing on intellectual property. Lori Robertson is the managing editor at factcheck.org, which many of you may have seen in many of there's been so much fact checking over the last months and months as we entered and got through the presidential election. Lori is a graduate, the factcheck.org is at the University of Pennsylvania Annenberg's Policy Center. And .org monitors the factual accuracy of political claims. I believe, and Lori will tell us more about this, that she focuses specifically on healthcare issues in her writing. And she's been a journalist for over 20 years with Fact Check since 2007. And Lori is a graduate of Duquesne University. Catherine Bauer is a current ML student. She's a registered dental hygienist and a clinical faculty instructor with the periodontics department at the Penn Dental School, where she instructs pre-doctoral students. And she's a graduate of Penn State. And Dr. Tricia Mundy has a very interesting and diverse history and certainly career in front of her. She is a doctor of veterinary medicine, recently having left our Penn Vet, we'll call it. She's currently a veterinary ophthalmologist with a company called Moves, which is a mobile veterinary care, which offers mobile veterinary care. Patricia holds degrees from Cambridge, degrees in veterinary medicine from Cambridge, completed an internship at the Royal Veterinary College in London, completed fellowships at Wisconsin in Madison and a residency at Cornell, And I understand she's presented several syndicated animal television shows for the BBC, but maybe she could tell us about that if she has time. Some people say, what does a veterinary ophthalmologist do? And I was very interested to see in her history that she works with, you can imagine police dogs, bomb dogs. These animals need to have excellent eyesight. So with that very summary introduction, which I know doesn't cover everything, I think at this point, I'll ask all of our students to turn on their videos, their mics, or maybe, I guess maybe not. Maybe we'll start with Naki. That's probably best. We're trying to save, I think, the bandwidth. We'll start with Naki. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And, wonderful.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's so nice to see Kathy and Natalie and everyone else at the law school. Really miss seeing you guys. I just want to give a little background about myself and the courses that I took at Penn and how they've kind of affected my career path and trajectory and what I'm doing now. So I think at the law, being a part of the ML program was one of the best academic decisions I made, because my career up until now then had been strictly science. So I had graduate degrees in neuroscience and in biotechnology before then, and I was really, really very interested in the legal side, and I had some experience in intellectual property work prior to that. And getting the fundamentals down from the coursework offered at the ML really gave me a very strong foundation that I could build on top of. And, to give you guys a sense of the courses that I took intellectual property law, or patent law rather. I took general business law. And then I also took some upper level courses at the law school for pharmaceutical regulation and enforcement, and law and IP and national economic value. So, in my day-to-day, where I deal a lot with the science of drug discovery in this really interesting space, which is CRISPR gene editing, now I actually get to evaluate some of the technologies that we might be looking at from other companies, right? So having that patent law background ends up being very, very valuable, because a lot of even senior scientists won't have any of that background, and I get to bring that to our meetings. And also when we do things like evaluate technologies from companies we might be interested in working with, or technologies that we might be interested in acquiring, having that business law background has been also very, very valuable. So I can talk about it in a lot more depth and a lot more perspective than I would have been able to prior to have done the ML at Penn. And people really recognize that as well. Initially when people find out you've done an ML, they might not be aware of what the degree means, but as they learn more about it, they're like, wow, where can I get a degree like that? Where can I supplement my career with this background? And, I'm really grateful for the faculty that gave such great insights into the coursework and how people with different backgrounds can benefit. But from the research side of things, for me, understanding the intellectual property better, understanding how business transactions happen better from a legal point of view, and understanding the regulatory space as well has been really, really helpful. I think that's what I wanted to share. I know we have more students. I'm happy to talk more, but it was a really, really good decision. And I would encourage all of you that are interested to look at the courses that are available online, look at the things that you're interested in, and ask Natalie, Kathy, and Katie as well any questions you may have. They're great and very, very helpful to make any important decisions. So I'll keep my comments to that, and if there's more I can add.
Wonderful. Thank you, Naki. I think what we'll do is we'll survey each of our students, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end, and anybody can address any questions. So I think we'll move on to Lori. Thank you, Naki. Move on to Lori. If you're, I'm a little hampered in what I can see, but it looks like Lori is there. Good.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. And it's really great to see everyone. I'm a journalist, so I come from a different background than I think all the other students on the panel. And as Kathy said, I cover healthcare policy and law. I've been with factcheck.org since 2007. Yes, we've been very busy this year, and we have a small staff, so I cover lots of things, but I've become our main healthcare reporter. So I've been covering the Affordable Care Act since the beginning. I write a lot of stories on Medicare and Medicaid, drug pricing, all kinds of stuff. So these courses were really helpful to me. I wish I had actually taken this program years ago, but it was really improved my breadth and depth of knowledge in healthcare issues, as well as other legal issues. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. First off, I loved the program and I loved being a student again. I just really enjoyed it. But in terms of the healthcare courses, you know, as a journalist, my job is often to learn about an issue as much as I can, as quickly as I can, and then explain something to the general public. So these courses really gave me a leg up in that department. I already had a base of knowledge. Thanks to these courses, that enabled me to do my job better. It improved my stories and it improved my interviews with experts. You know, specifically over the past year or so, we've looked at the Medicare for All proposal. So the courses I've taken, including the Comparative Health Systems course, really helped me in that regard. But more broadly, beyond healthcare, you know, like I said, we have a small staff, so I cover lots of issues, and a lot of these issues are legal issues, whether it's immigration or Supreme Court nominee hearings, you know, the impeachment hearings, so many things that we do. Even now with all of these voter fraud claims that we're now dealing with, I'm reading court cases almost every day. That's something I did before this program, but this program really helped me you know, read cases in a more efficient and I think a better way. So I think that's about all I want to say. And I don't know if I mentioned, I've taken 3 of the courses that were talked about today. I didn't take the medical negligence course. And I also took the healthcare finance law course. So I think that's about it. I would really recommend the program to anyone from any background. I will say as a journalist, I was a little concerned, if I'm taking the healthcare tract and most of the other students are from medical backgrounds, am I going to be at a disadvantage? Am I not going to understand some of the terms they're talking about? I really didn't have that issue at all. So I would encourage anyone from any background interested in the program to do it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lori. I know there's so much to say and I'd love to ask more. I think in the interest of time, we'll just continue to go along and then we'll see if we can come back to you. So Dr. Iyer, I see you're there. I wonder if you could share with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I really appreciate this opportunity to see you all. And I think it was a fantastic experience. It's great seeing you all again, except for 6 months. So, you know, I've been working in the field of healthcare for a couple of decades now, different continents. I worked in India, I trained in India, I worked in Europe, and now a couple of decades here in the United States. And as I practiced medicine over the years, I mean, I could see that there was a change. There was a change in how healthcare worked, how it was reimbursed, how it was practiced. So over time, I became interested in the nuances regarding optimal healthcare delivery and the laws and policies that govern medicine, and I wanted to learn something about it. So a couple of years ago, just around this time, I saw an email, a flyer about a healthcare policy course at Penn Law, and just on a whim, I attended that class, and that completely piqued my interest. And fast forward 2 years, I've completed my master's. I couldn't believe how time flew. Most of my work was healthcare related. I mean, most of my courses were healthcare related courses, including healthcare fraud and abuse, healthcare finance, malpractice, and of course, healthcare law and policy. So basically, I learned a lot about the legal perspectives of healthcare. I mean, for example, how is negligence and mistakes, how are they punished? How is fraud and abuse investigated? How do you prosecute that? How is healthcare funded at different ages? You know, how is it reimbursed? So it was fantastic learning all that. Initially, I was somewhat reluctant, you know, and concerned about the coursework with a busy schedule at work, but the workload was just perfect. The discussions were thought-provoking and the teachers were well-informed, friendly, And in fact, I couldn't wait for the next scheduled class. I mean, you know, when there was a break, I would say, oh my God, there's a break. I don't have a class. But these courses have definitely informed my practice. They've given me a better understanding of the mechanisms that drive the healthcare delivery in our country. There is no question. I'm a more well-rounded provider with this understanding. The faculty are excellent, all practicing lawyers, you know, thought leaders in the field. These classes were diverse, rich in new perspectives. I can't recommend this program enough. It's a fantastic course. And of course, you know, after attending Professor Paul Kaufman's class, you know, he also taught me some new skills and tools to win some arguments with my wife and kids. So that was always helpful, being near lawyers and educated and brilliant people. But I can't thank enough. And this is a fantastic course that, given a chance, I will come back again and do it again.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's really wonderful. Gosh, I wish we had more time. We're just going to zip right along. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. I can't see all the squares, but yes, you're still here. And it's funny, we have your beautiful glam shot, and we have your current work with your, what did you call it? Your scrubs.
My scrub cap. I wore my best, my cutest scrubs today.
There you go.
I'm on my lunch break. So,
thank you.
Excuse me, thanks for having me. I was asked to participate on the student panel because I have been quoted as saying everyone should take medical negligence, no matter what you're trying to pursue, taking the classes. For me, initially, I always introduce myself in the classes as saying I'm taking care or taking use of my tuition benefit. As an employee here, it's a wonderful benefit provided to us. So wanting to do that, but not necessarily knowing where I wanted to go with it, discovered the ML degree because it is offered as a dual degree to dental students. Little background, I'm a dental hygienist. I do teach here at the dental school to the predoctoral students. And I know that some of them I've taken classes with, so it's kind of neat to be able to sit side by side with them. But what I've learned that this degree has started to offer me is it creates a more well-rounded position with you as your current career, or if you want to advance your career. It's going to enhance your current state no matter where you're at. The law has always been a little bit intimidating, and I don't think anyone should be intimidated to take this. What I've learned is that we all offer value and insight to these classes that we take, and we're fortunate enough to be able to find the classes that do interest us. For me, the medical negligence, the tort law, the criminal kind of stuff really kind of piqued my interest, but and also kind of alerts you to what is possible in your career. It makes you a better practitioner, opens your eyes to what can be fair or unfair in terms of medical negligence. So it makes you be aware to those possibilities, but it also explains what's beyond your four walls of the clinical setting. It kind of explains the way that healthcare works. It gives you a little bit of empathy towards your patients with the limits and regulations of the health law and their abilities to obtain healthcare or not have healthcare, and kind of gives you an insight as to why they may or may not be seeking treatment with you in their decision making. So all in all, I think whether you're just wanting to enhance yourself in your current position or possibly open doors in your future position, there is something out there for you to take advantage of. And I hope that, more people look at this degree, not really knowing the direction I wanted to take. I do want to give a ton of kudos to Kathy and Natalie and Kate. They've kind of guided me as a little lost puppy sometimes as to which direction to go. And it's just been incredibly helpful. So reach out if you need anything. The professors that I've taken so far are, in my opinion, the best of the best. They're passionate in what they're teaching. It's their forte. And it's just been really a great enhancement to me as a person, and me as an employee, and me as a teacher, and me as a focused professional wanting to advance into other fields.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thanks for the shout out. Not necessary. The check's in the mail. No, I'm just kidding. But really, it's wonderful to have you here, and thanks for those comments. Again, our clock is ticking. So, Dr. Mundy, I'll give the floor to you, and use hopefully everybody can join, can stay on the call, and we'll continue on questions after you. But the floor is yours, Dr. Mundy.
Thank you. I think I've got my video working.
Yes,
okay.
I can see you. Yes.
So I think my interest with the program kind of slightly a little bit left field. Obviously, not being American, I was more interested in how healthcare is allocated in the States. And being in the veterinary field over the past 15 years, I've seen veterinary medicine become more and more closer to human medicine when it comes to regulation and legal mandates. So that was another interesting aspect of it. The beauty of the ML program is you kind of go into it clear in your head about what you want to do, but I can probably guarantee you that you're not clear about what you want to do. And I did have quite a few pivots while I've been there, and all of which have been instrumental in my career change. I was initially faculty at the vet school, teaching veterinary ophthalmology, but I was also in the startup space. I was starting a telemedicine company, and I was able to take patent law and business law as well. So I had a better understanding of not only the liability of starting a telemedicine company, contracts, and also the patenting process as well. And on the kind of more personal note, I've also been working in the social justice space for the past probably like 4 or 5 years. And it's been a kind of hot button topic in veterinary medicine, and we haven't known how to address it. So I did actually take a JD course while I was there. So I did the diversity and inclusion JD course, which has been absolutely amazing. And I've been lecturing in London on diversity and inclusion veterinary medicine. And I'm also now on the ophthalmology board in the States for diversity and inclusion, and proud to say I'm also on the Penn Law student advisory board on diversity and inclusion, which was an absolute honor. So excellent. The ML program is what you want to make it, and there's no short of support from all the lovely folks that run it in kind of guiding you. It is, I can't say this with any more gravity, it is completely career changing. Whether you stay in your current career and kind of become a better version of yourself, or kind of pivot within your space, or do what I did, which is completely do a 180. But I can't sell it enough. And my biggest fear was how would I balance being on clinics, my academic requirements, and the course. And I was the setup at the vet school was I didn't have any time off during the day, so pretty much all my classes were evening classes. So I'd kind of go from the vet school at 6, and the classes normally start about 6 till 8. And it's actually not doable. And I did 2 classes a semester. So it is completely feasible that you can actually still work full time and still do the ML program. And I would recommend, if you're kind of nervous, take a class or do the certificate, get your feet wet, and kind of see where you go from there.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. So valuable. And I know, I'm really humbled to hear everything that, to hear our words of, it's to hear that the program is turning out to be exactly what we'd hoped it to be, really providing great value to the students, but also bringing great value into the classroom at the law school. I know, I believe I'm going to ask my team, Natalie and Kate. I'm not sure if we were scheduled till 1 and if we should go ahead and continue. I know we have a few questions teed up, but whether we should close out the session since folks have to go, or whether we could continue along with some questions if maybe some folks are able to stay. And for those who are not, we can certainly email a link to today's session, so then you can answer my own questions. But yeah, so I think we'll let's see. We have quite a few questions. Many have been answered, is what I'm understanding. So I guess I'll ask, oh, good. I see Natalie unmuting herself.
Yeah, I was going to say that quite a few of the questions that came in, either the faculty or the students answered as they were going. And then there are just some questions to meet with us, how people go about that. So I think if you, and also if they can get contact information from
Sure.
either the students or the faculty. So as long as somebody didn't tell us that they don't want that to happen, we can certainly do that. And I believe if you just click to the next slide, we have our contact information on here. And also this will be mailed to all the attendees. So it'll be on the PowerPoint and you can just reach out to us and set up an appointment.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess before we close up, as I said, we will send it around in a link. So if anybody has to log off, thank you so much for joining us. But if anybody has a few moments, I just wanted to let you know, again, we'll be sending this around. Any members of the Penn community who wish to take a spring class, now's a great time to reach out to us. If you're not sure which one to take, classes, as I said, will begin on January 20th. If their team, were there any specific questions of any of our faculty that we could tee up now, or we think they've already been addressed in comments?
There was a question about whether the JD classes are offered over the summer, which unfortunately they're not. We might have some, in the future, some healthcare related classes that are being offered in the Master in Law space over the summer, but that's not in the queue right now. So yeah, those are during the school year only. And then in relation to that, a question about, just what it's like to be in a JD class as a non-JD student. It's a common question from anybody, whether they're Master in Law students or other graduate students across the university, or people coming in externally to pursue the Master in Law degree. So I don't know if one of the faculty members is still on the call who wants to answer that, but I can say that, or one of the student panelists, if somebody wants to talk about being in a JD class.
I will just say two things briefly. One is that a number of people have spoken to that issue, and these courses are directed at everybody and getting everybody up to speed. What Professor Kaufman said about his course being a real guide to the way in which law operates is true, and I would actually recommend the healthcare fraud and abuse class and the medical negligence class to anybody. You get a particular and very amazing insight into the American legal system and into the healthcare system by doing those courses. And you can rest assured that you are learning in the healthcare fraud and abuse case, you are learning along with the JD students about how law works. Obviously for the other courses such as mine, they're set up for non-lawyers and lawyers. They're designed to provide background to a full range of students. And I think I can speak for all of the faculty to say that it's set up so that whatever knowledge you bring to the class, you will be able to get to reach the goals set for each individual course.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that additional insight. And are there any students who would like to speak about the student perspective?
I can probably just, I'm sorry.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead. Yep.
So I guess for me, I had definitely reservations or fears about doing a JD class. And it's amazing just how much your professors will actually help you. Because I did the ML regulatory law class, and I actually spoke to my professor about my fears. It wasn't the G class, but he actually sat down with me and actually taught me how to write case briefs, which was my biggest fear. And then I think also taking an ML class that showed you how to actually use the library, how to use Westlaw, was very helpful, because I think I took those classes pretty early on, and it kind of made, I ended up taking 2 JD classes, I think, the kind of research side of it a little bit easier. So there is classes that you can take, and you can actually speak to your ML professors who will help you prepare you for the actual JD classes before you take them.
Thank you.
I can comment as well. So I took 2 JD classes. One was pharmaceutical regulation and enforcement, and another was law, IP, and national economic value. One difference that I'd say between the the two is there is definitely more reading in the JD courses, but they're definitely manageable. And I learned actually a tremendous amount, and they go into a little bit more depth, and it's interesting to see the perspectives of the law students as well. So, it's approachable, I think, to all students. If you're taking an ML course, you could definitely talk to the faculty member beforehand to just get a sense of the course that you're interested in, but definitely doable and slightly different course load, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Did I hear another student chiming in? Was it? Dr.
Yeah, it's Ramesh here. I mean, I can endorse that. I really think it's not a problem at all. And the ML students being with the JD students enriches the class. And the JD students bring their perspective, and it's fun to hear their understanding of the law. And I really don't think the professors make it any harder on the ML students. So I really don't think it's at all. In fact, that's, in my opinion, a good thing to have some JD students. I had 3 classes where we had JD students.
Okay. Yeah, it's great the way it is to enrich their network with professionals and everybody on the call, but also the professionals that the JD students become. And it was really neat and valuable, and he has and how the JD students learning and when they're interacting with others in their careers and in their lives, that they create sort of build the law. I wonder if I so appreciate everybody. I know we're already 7 minutes over. I know we could talk on. This is the first time we set up like today, which is specifically focused on those working and studying healthcare industries. But I realize we'll have to tweak it for the next time and try to get, because I think it's so valuable to hear from our faculty, our students, and maybe I'll need to say this the next time. But now, let's say tremendous thanks to everybody, our students, our alumni, our faculty on the call. Thanks to the audience, colleagues, put this all together. It's really been a wonderful, I think, hour plus together. I think it's been tremendous. We really we couldn't be happy with today's session. And if anybody has questions, certainly send us an email, send a link to this presentation once it's tidied up a bit by our IT folks, and then you'll be able to hear it at that point if you're interested in going back. Any additional notes from our team or faculty? And wanted to say any parting notes? I think at that point we'll wrap it up. Okay, thanks to everybody. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend. TGIF.